Are you ready?
Yeah, there we go. We're ready, Sipple. You counted it down and everything. It says we're live.
Yeah.
And
Penn State's live.
Penn State's live and in color. 17 up with, what is that, 11 minutes ago?
Yeah, 10:28.
10:28 to go. Good game. Different story at Memorial Stadium today.
Yeah.
Nebraska coming off a bye week. Turns it over 4 times. Loses 28-23 to Purdue. Sipple, just I guess give me your what did you write your column about? Like what came to mind to you after this? Because this one felt pretty rough.
Yeah, what comes to mind is I think it's a significant day.
Yeah.
For the program, because it's possible, and I don't know, I'm interested to hear what you think about this. It's possible that the end of the Frost tenure is writing itself. The story of the end of Frost tenure it could be writing itself. They're 3-6 with 3 really hard games left.
Yeah.
They have a game next week against 5th ranked Ohio State. And then they end the season against 9th ranked Iowa. In between that is a game at Wisconsin, which has won 4 straight.
Yeah, and beat Iowa by 3 scores today.
Yeah, but yes. So 3-9. Now it's possible, we leave open the possibility that Trev Alberts has already made a decision that Frost will be back. It's possible he's made a decision that Frost won't be back. We don't know.
Right.
But it's also possible he might not have a hard decision. If they go 3-9 and 1-8,
yeah,
in the Big Ten.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's just hard. I mean, at some point, it's like that. Okay, I have two thoughts, and this will maybe sort of get us a little bit further into this conversation. One is that Trev Alberts was on the radio last week. He wasn't here today. His son got married today, and he wasn't at the game. And so on Tuesday last week, this week Tuesday, he was on the radio. And one of the things he said was that he had really appreciated how hard the players had worked and how together they were. He said, I'd be really surprised, very surprised if we don't come out and play well against Purdue.
Mm-hmm.
And
they really didn't play well.
They didn't play well. I turned the ball over 4 times. And so
Purdue held the ball for 38 minutes, 38 seconds.
Yeah. So for as positive as Trev has been in his comments about the direction of things so far, you could surmise that he was very surprised that they didn't play well today. I think, and then that sort of gets me to the other element of it, which is it wasn't that long ago, October 9th, right here against Michigan. Mm-hmm. They took control of that game. They went ahead in the 4th quarter, and you were thinking like, wow, top 10 team here in Lincoln, Nebraska's toe-to-toe with them, and they might just knock them off. And so it's sort of like you say, you leave open the first. So it's swung really hard, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
In 21 days since then.
Yeah.
You lose that game. You lose against Minnesota. You come out flat out of the bye week and lose to Purdue. It could swing the other way fast too. But it's sort of hard to say that without immediately qualifying it and saying that doesn't look likely at this point. That they're just going to wheel out of it and upset Ohio State and win their last time.
Right, and there was a somewhat meaningful scene at Memorial Stadium today, I thought, with 10:05 left or 9.5 minutes left in the 4th quarter, Nebraska trailing 28-17. There was a pretty mass exodus of fans to the exits, and that feels like an indictment on Frost. I mean, this 28-17 with 10 minutes left.
Right.
Game's not over. And the game wasn't over. I mean, Nebraska did make a late push. And that felt like a vote of no confidence to me.
Yeah, it did. It was hard. I mean, it's impossible not to notice that it was clear.
It was a big part of the day.
And I think part of the reason for the exodus was that in the second half, Nebraska's offense opened the second half with, in its first 7 possessions, had 4 punts and 3 interceptions.
Yeah.
And Frost said, and I'm sure people will ask about this too, they didn't talk about changing quarterback from Adrian Martinez. And then he said they're not going to talk. It's not an issue. He said that's not a story going forward. They're going to play their best guy, and that's Adrian. And he basically said that's Adrian this year. So it just people started to leave, and it wasn't pretty by the end of it. Even as Nebraska, I mean, he scored, and then a onside kick was loose, and Nebraska sideline momentarily thought they would have had the ball back with 1:40 left and down 5, but not to be.
Right. So it was it was a dispiriting day.
Yeah.
I mean, right down to kind of Frost post game, where he said, I mean, the thing that really struck me is we have enough talent to be winning these games,
and we're not,
which seems like an indictment on him.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, if you go back to what he said in July, that he feels like he has by far the most talent he's had at Nebraska. This is his 4th year, that the team is more unified, that the culture's better. It all adds up to, okay, well, then you have the team, then what's the issue? There's only one left that you really point to.
Right.
Is it not being coached that well?
Right.
And that's what I mean. This might all be sort of writing itself.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's a high degree of stress involved here. I mean, there is and there isn't. And it's like, again, I want to reiterate, it's possible Trev Alberts has decided to move on with this staff. No matter what. Sure. But that would really surprise me if they finish 3-9.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. I mean, it's hard. And then it's hard to imagine that there's not going to be major change.
Parker, what I'm saying, it's not hard to imagine.
Well, no, yeah. I'm saying it's hard to imagine 3-9 and then no major change after that.
Right. Yeah, I don't know what that change would look like. And I'm just saying it's possible, and it looks increasingly possible. And you made it. You put it really well. I wish I would have wrote this in the column, but I was really rushed.
2:30 games suck.
Yeah. The conversation swung quickly.
Yeah, it did.
Now, what the detractors have, though, Parker, is a much better ability now to minimize the close losses to Oklahoma, Michigan State, and Michigan. Now you can kind of point to those and say, come on, they lost them. Instead of pointing to them and say, oh, come on, that was progress.
I know, yeah.
So it's easier for the detractors now to say, oh, no, what do those mean? After the door swung so fast, Minnesota was a really dispiriting loss. Yeah. And this was even more dispiriting.
Right. And I thought that's what made to me the post game the most interesting thing. I wrote about this in the game story was that, that even though it's 4 losses, right? Like if you look at Michigan State and Michigan, and then Minnesota and Purdue, it's 4 losses, but the 2 felt significantly different. The first 2 felt different than the last 2, just in the way the game was played, in the energy in the stadium, and Frost said after the game that he thinks edge. He was, Sam McCune from the World Herald asked him, does your team have enough edge? And he said, I think that's the problem. Mm-hmm. And he said, it's just a gritty player to go and make a play when it counts. And so I asked JoJo Domann if he thought the team had lost some edge over the past 2 losses. He really didn't like that. And he said, you cannot question that with this team. Mm-hmm. It's not fair.
I don't know.
I mean,
Frost raised it.
One, that's what I'm saying is that Frost said he thinks edge is a problem, and then JoJo Domann said it's not fair to question that with this team, that the will and the want to is there. And he said, obviously, there's something that's not allowing us to win games. I don't know. The thing that they agree on is that there's something that's not working. Mm-hmm. So, all right, should we get into some questions?
Yes.
Alan, nice, easy one to start you off, Sipple. Where does one go from here as a fan university team?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I don't know. That's a very subjective question.
Sure.
And we're not fans. I mean,
right.
We're not supposed to be, and we're not.
We're also not a university.
Right. But I will tell you this. I mean, it's not like I haven't been a fan of teams. And I think if I were a Nebraska fan, the way I'd answer that is this. The story's interesting and it's important. It's a really important story, what's going on right now.
Yeah.
Because there might have to be a move made, or let's just put it this way. There's going to have to be now it looks like there's going to be a tough decision.
Yeah, there's a decision. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's important because Nebraska's now staring down the barrel of a 5th straight season without a bowl game. And if you're a Nebraska fan, you should be, very concerned about the future because you don't know, you may not know where this is going. If they stick with Frost, you don't know where it's going. If they make a move, you don't know where they're going with that move. And you don't know how long, if there's a new coach, you don't know how long that process is going to take.
Right.
So how far are you getting set back? Either way, some would argue that if you bring back Frost, you're getting set back. I mean, this is all very serious is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not light anymore.
No.
It felt kind of fun and light October 9th, but it swung incredibly quickly.
Yeah, it did. Adam says, why can everyone see that a different quarterback is needed but Frost? Adam, I think to me, I mean, I get they could have put Smothers in late in the game today. I don't know, Sipple. I think that the bigger issue or indictment on the quarterback front is not that they didn't pull Adrian Martinez today. It's that they don't seem to have even somebody that they feel like makes that a conversation about whether they should or shouldn't.
Yeah, there no doubt about that. I mean, we just don't in our position. We just don't know what's going on in practice, what that Logan Smothers picture looks like. So I can't say to you they should have went to Smothers.
Right.
If in practice it just doesn't, if he's not moving the team.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like it's not like our job is to ask questions, and sometimes it's to push back on what people tell you. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not our job to just be a rube and believe everything that we hear, but at the same time, like you have to at some point believe that people are making at least something approaching rational decisions. Like after a game where Adrian Martinez goes from 3 interceptions on the season through 8 games, and then he throws 4 tonight. And for Frost to stand up there after the game and say they didn't think about changing quarterbacks during the game, and then also that they're not considering opening up the competition over the last 3 weeks.
He said it's not a story.
He said that's not a story, which just means flatly that it's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, unless Martinez has a health issue. So I don't think you can draw anything from that except for that they just believe that he's by far their best option. Mm-hmm. And that means they're going to roll with him no matter what happens pretty much over the last 3 games.
Yeah, he had a bad game at Minnesota, but that was you can explain that by the fact he was hurt.
Right.
Playing with a bad ankle.
Yeah.
Today, you just can't explain today except he had a bad day.
Yeah.
And it was I don't know. I can't remember him having a worse day as a Husker.
Yeah, it was rough. 14 of 29, 4 picks. The one on the first possession could have been a pick 6. They fumbled a snap. For all the learning how to play in the Big Ten talk, how is it that Nebraska gets time of possession dominated by pass-happy Purdue in year 4? Yeah, Matthew. I mean, Purdue's offense is weird. I mean, they can't, even though they passed at 58% coming in, they came in averaging more than 32 minutes time of possession per game. So even in the Big Ten, it's not like they're pass happy and they average 24 minutes a game. I mean, they do a nice job. And part of the reason why they've been better this year is because they have done well on the clock, even though they throw it a lot. And that was really on display today. I mean, 47 dropbacks for Aiden O'Connell, had 34 completions, 11 incompletions, and 2 sacks. I mean, that's a recipe for it. You throw in 4 turnovers, including 2 of them that came right at the beginning of drives, and that Nebraska got dominated time of possession, game control wise. It's over, Phil says. Well, I mean, it's interesting. Jojo Dillman said it was mind blowing after the game. It's technically still true that Nebraska controls. They could win 3.
Yeah, and he said that they still have their goals intact. That's not. That's one of their goals, and that's not one of their high goals to get to the bowl.
No, yeah, in the West Division, but the West Division's been out of the conversation for a couple of weeks now. Mm-hmm. What's going on with Martinez? Been a starter for how long now? Way too many turnovers. Yeah, Chris, the turnover thing he'd had some ill-timed ones, obviously, the fumble before half against Illinois and the fumble against Michigan. But he hadn't been turnover prone this year. But man, bad time today for that trend to reverse itself. Players are open, which means play calling is right, can't execute. That's on the court. Yeah, Cam, if you're talking to Cameron, if you're talking about the one before halftime, I didn't. Samari Toure talked after the game. I didn't catch what he said. I know Clark talked to him, so I'll have to read the Journal Star just like you all should. It looked to me like Toure probably should have made a better play on that ball.
Yeah, I thought it was a little overthrown. Toure looked like he was tracking it and kind of slowed up a little bit at the end. If he would have just stayed on the dead sprint, I think he would have caught it, and that was a big play. That was a big, non-play, non-completion that Nebraska had. I thought it was gigantic.
Oh,
in the third quarter. Well, in the third quarter,
okay,
when it looked like Nebraska at 17-14 they got the ball at the Purdue 42, and it looked like they were about ready to take control, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then that's when I think that was the shovel. Yeah, that was the shovel pass that was picked off. And Purdue, of course, I don't know if they
didn't score on that drive, but it changed the field position entirely because Nebraska finally got good field position. They started at the 41, they turned it over, and they forced a 3-and-out. But then Nebraska was backed up, punted, and suddenly it had gone from Nebraska starting at the 41 to like Purdue's started at the 41, and then in Nebraska territory, their next drive and scored on that one.
Yeah, and part of that discussion is that the black shirts came out of the halftime locker room smoking. I mean, they were playing really well. Okay, so they're playing well. Now you have the ball at the Purdue 42. Offense had played well enough in the first half that you thought, okay, they can take control of the game right.
Yeah.
Instead, it went the other way.
Yeah, it went the other way hard. Yep. What did you think of JoJo Doman's comments about the fans leaving early? To be honest with you, Henry, I didn't really think that much of them. I wouldn't be surprised if it gets a lot of run, what he said. But I didn't. I mean, you guys are
really frustrated.
He was really frustrated. It's obviously emotional after you lose a game like that. And I just don't.
No, I don't put much into it. He had his uniform. Okay, so what he said basically was what?
The Husker faithful will always be there. And if there's fair weather fans, they don't need them.
Right. Now, remember, JoJo, right after him, in fact, he's still in uniform.
Right.
Eye black smeared all over. He's still, he's not cooled off.
Right.
So, no. And no, I don't put much into those at all. I'm not going to take a kid to task for that.
Trepper says, Sipple's been saying all year what a great quarterback Adrian is. Are we ever going to see it on the field? He can't run the offense.
Well, we've seen it. Yeah. We've seen him play really well.
Right.
He played poorly today. He played poorly against Minnesota. And, some of that to me, of course, Minnesota illustrated to me how important he is to him, because if you take his running out of it, they just don't have a whole lot.
And even though Frost said going into the game that this was as healthy as he will have been in a while, it didn't look like he was running at full speed. It didn't look. It
didn't look like it. But he was poor today. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. There's not. Yeah. Adrian had a terrible game and cost him in a big way. But I'm not going to say Adrian's a bad quarterback, because I don't think he is. But he's had some bad moments. That conversation is very complicated. The Adrian Martinez the conversation today, not complicated.
Yeah, no.
Big picture, complicated. Purdue game, not complicated. He had a bad game.
Kyle says, if I'm Smothers, I'm going to Frost and Tunnel. I'm transferring. If a guy plays that poorly, and I'm not given a chance, that means you'll never give me one. Some quarterbacks would do that. Maybe Logan will. I'd sort of doubt it. He's so young. He's a second-year guy, and I understand there are young quarterbacks around the country, obviously in some places that are ready to play from an early age. But even if it's not in the next 3 games, somebody else's chance is coming at some point, and that's a whole nother conversation about what the quarterback room looks like beyond this year. But at this point, it's a little bit hard to even entertain that conversation, Sipple, about like, what does 2022 look like at quarterback? Because I think there's even bigger questions than that to answer.
Yeah, that's a very much a secondary conversation.
They had the bye week and 4 games left. Why not get Harburg ready to play and see if he's a Big Ten quarterback? No risk for his redshirt. Ray, I get it, but it's not. You cannot. I understand that some people are like, well, they can't win the division, so let's just play a bunch of young guys. It's really hard to go to Markel Dismuke and Ben Stilley and JoJo Doman and all those guys and say, hey, look, guys, we're just going to mortgage the next 4 games so we can see about a young quarterback. Yeah. That's just not the way it works in college football. It seems, James says, it seems like he wants to be fired. I mean, he's.
I don't know how you expect a head coach to act in these situations. You can't really win if you're stand up there and are strong. People might read it that way.
Right.
If you're weak, they're going to say you're a weak leader. So I don't know what.
Ron Burgundy. Hi, Ron. Says good day for Alberts to be at a wedding. Yeah. Well,
it's been a good day for me to be at a wedding.
I was at a wedding last weekend. It was really fun.
Yeah. See that? Next week will be fun when they play Ohio State. That'll be fun.
Yeah. This is wishful thinking. If it's not quarterback play, it's something else that stinks, Phil says. I mean, that's sort of been the issue this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like they haven't been able to just put it together in a game except for Northwestern. I mean, it's like when the offense gets rolling, the defense falters. And if they're both going kind of good, the special teams makes a big mistake. Then today, special teams was actually pretty darn good all the way around.
Christoph had punts of 38, 29, and 37.
Yeah.
Not great. But he had a 62-yarder that they downed. Here's the deal. The defense for 3 games now has been leaky and can't get off the field.
Yeah.
3 games.
Yep.
That conversation changed.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just not playing particularly well on either side of the ball.
Yeah.
The last 2 games anyway.
Right. Dean on Facebook says Frost's best season is Riley's worst season.
Yeah, you just can't compare those.
Need a change at either quarterback or coaching. You guys, Scott, that's a lot of this. Yeah, there's a ton of comments in here, so thank you guys all for being here. Do you think this Nebraska team is one of those teams that plays to the level of their competition?
Yeah, I mean, there's some evidence that suggests that.
Yeah. Let's see.
I don't know. Here's the thing. Purdue is, I would call them good, not great, but certainly good.
Yeah.
I mean, Purdue is 5-3 and 3-2 in the Big Ten.
Right.
That's pretty good. I mean,
yeah,
they're all right.
Yeah.
That's not a bad Purdue team. So I don't know that. Okay, so what am I saying? Parker, did Nebraska play down to Purdue? That's really, if I were a Purdue fan, I would really be offended by that if you just look at the records.
Yeah, Purdue was ranked in the top 25 last week before they lost to Wisconsin.
Right. So did Nebraska play down to Purdue? No, Purdue fans could say, no, we played down to Nebraska.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
Brad says, I'm a Frost fan, but Husker fans see coaches like Mel Tucker who turn a team around in 2 years and wonder what.
Is October 9th, it looked pretty good for Nebraska. The stadium was rocking. This place had so much energy. Now, 3 weeks later, you don't know where it's going, except you're in the teeth of this hard November schedule, and the teams that you're going to play are all playing pretty well.
Right.
Except not Iowa necessarily.
Yeah, Iowa's playing the worst of the 3 that they've got left.
Right. So, but it's going to be a really rough November.
Yeah. William says start Logan Smothers and bench Adrian Martinez. Look at Oklahoma. Yeah, well, the difference, and again, we don't see practice, but Caleb Williams is like the top-ranked player in the country for his class, 5-star guy.
Big difference.
A little bit of a different conversation.
Yeah, I don't think you can say that. If Nebraska had Caleb Williams behind
the O-line doesn't play well. Yeah, Matthew, totally agree. They ran the ball pretty well early in the game, but I think the offensive line struggled some over the course of the rest of it. I mean, Jason brings up a good point here, Sipple. The defense gave up 21 points in the game, and Nebraska turned it over 4 times. The defense played okay.
Not a bad point.
I mean.
Now, I would counter with Purdue held the ball for 38 minutes, 38.
Yeah, Purdue's longest play offensively was 21 yards.
That's a counter on the other side.
But to me, the issue was if you watch what Wisconsin did last week against Purdue is they made big plays, 6 sacks and 3 interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
The way to disrupt that dink and dunk passing game is to disrupt the quarterback, to make it. You saw there were times where if Nebraska got any pressure at all, they got off the field. Mm-hmm. That's the only way to knock Purdue off the schedule, with the way that they just sort of throw the ball underneath. And Nebraska just didn't do that nearly often enough. No interceptions, 2 sacks. It's just not enough to deal with that sort of.
No, I mean, I'm not going to give the defense a pass here. I know what the score was, But I also know that O'Connell was basically playing pitch and catch at critical times late in the game.
Yep.
Pitch and catch.
Yeah.
They're going to get this first down. They'll get it because he'll throw it to a guy.
The time of possession when the other team turns the ball. Yeah, it definitely played a role in it. So did 6 third down conversions for Purdue. Overall, obviously, bad night for Nebraska. I think we'll end it there. Simple 25 minutes. Thank you all for being here and for all of the comments and all that. We have a ton of coverage. Journalstar.com/Huskers, HuskerExtra.com. Going to be an interesting few weeks ahead. In the 25 minutes we've been on, Ohio State's gone up 10 on Penn State. So, yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. For Sipple